everybody, and welcome back to A Critical Look. And this is going to be, let me double check, episode 11 of this series. Now, as you may not notice, it's not the classic quest that's coming back, I promise. It is your boy HSR.
Yo, it's your boy Chris Chrome.
It's your lady friend Bonnie.
Alright, so as you may have noticed, Bonnie hasn't been with us for the last couple of weeks, and the classic rap review stopped for a minute, and I don't know if you want to tell the fine people what happened.
I was just in the hospital, that's it. That's why we're not ready for this week's show. So we'll figure all that out, and if you see any track marks on me, it's not because of heroin, it's just because of them taking out my blood. So there you go.
Well, attempting to, at least.
At least attempting to, in several different places.
So yeah, it's been hectic and busy, and
yes.
honestly, in light of the fact that we want to do the Lupe Fiasco, Tetsuo, and Youth album, we wanted to take the time to do it right, and Bonnie hasn't had a chance to really analyze it, and she told us.
My bad.
She made it clear that she didn't want to miss out on anything.
Yep.
I didn't want to do it like injustice because I heard that it's supposed to be like pretty good, so yeah, that's it.
What Justin Hunt says.
Mm-hmm.
So you may be asking, what are we going to talk about today? Well, you may see it in like the title of this video, but
that's true.
In a general sense, we wanted to talk a little bit about the content of songs and a little bit about album placement in general, because it seems like as we go along the reviews,
we go on, we remember.
Yeah,
no, anyone?
So we seem to be talking and consistently debating, like, is there too many songs about this particular subject?
Repetitions,
similarities. Like, when is it okay for a person to like make 15 songs about the same topic?
Yeah.
Like, how come sometimes it's boring and it's not? And I don't know. We didn't really have the most strict plan for this, so if it's a little all over the place, that's kind of the point. We're just here to discuss. So yeah, I guess to start it off, let's split this idea of content into
okay.
like.
Well,
how many songs can we write about doing crack?
I wanted to say, let's build an album. Like, let's build an album in a sense. Let's discuss if we were, like, if you're building an album, how would you place it?
I think there's, even to that end, there's a couple of things to look at with your album. Like, what's the point of it? First of all, does your album have a concept? Yes or no? Because you got to keep in mind that sometimes an album is just a collection of songs that an artist produced over X period of time.
And that most of the time you can listen to them individually, but like somehow together, like if you listen to them in order or like something like that.
Well,
then
I
they're
feel
gonna
like
have...
that's if you like the artist or something. Like something like a DJ
That's
Khaled
true.
album.
But like, well, hear me out. Even to that end, right? And then within that collection of songs, there's a degree of congruency of, let's say, style or whatever. Mm-hmm. So like with DJ Khaled, you're expecting pop hits, but arranged in a way to take you on some kind of a journey.
Right.
So when we're talking about like the theme though, so when you're trying to come up with just subject matter for your album, something like what DJ Khaled's doing, what the songs are about is completely irrelevant. It could be 20 songs about selling drugs, for lack of a better term, and it's okay because of the style of album he's chosen to produce in the moment where it's very theme-set music.
Fine.
So before to start your album, it's always important to decide what is the point of your album. What are you trying to accomplish with it?
Right, and with that, I wanted to ask you, when you say concept and non-concept, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I look at, I don't know, let's say Kendrick Lamar's album, Damn, right? There's a concept to that, as we all know, and that's very complicated. We might get into that. But in terms of, like, a DJ Khaled album, I kind of look at it, and I'm like, the concept of this album, I would call it a non-concept album because it's all just party music.
Concept.
Exactly. There's no actual...
Or take, like when I think of a concept, I think that there's some kind of idea or central theme of the album. And so a real concept album is often going to have comparable subject matter, whether it's like Linkin Park making a concept album where every song's about different political ideas going on and whatever.
Yeah, there's like something that's going on like behind the scenes that isn't necessarily a concept, but it's just a
like,
way of life.
What I'm saying, like to make it like a concept, it's writing about one central idea. Whether it's a story or not is even a second question. So a concept album like Kendrick Lamar's Damn kind of has a story to it.
Right.
So it's expected to have its own evolution and flow. But you might have a concept album, something more like, I don't know, The Wall by Pink Floyd, which just kind of has that feel to it, but doesn't. No, that kind of has a bit of a story, eh?
Well,
yeah, even like the Salt and Pepper
like
album that we recently did, like that had like enough of a concept, like where it was like just do your own thing.
But it wasn't a story.
It wasn't a story. No,
there
it wasn't.
There was storytelling in each song. I felt like in Salt and Pepper, each song had a different story to it, different meaning, whatever.
Let's look at an album then that's just completely not a concept. I would say DMX's Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood. That is not a concept album.
Okay.
Right?
Sorry,
there's no.
I haven't gone there yet.
No, but like there's no. No, like the one that we covered.
No, the first one, not Blood of My Blood.
Whatever. Dark and Hell is Hot.
There we go. Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I meant. That's not really a concept album, right? Yeah, certainly DMX tends to write about the same kinds of songs all over.
Right.
But that album is just like DMX wrote a bunch of tracks and laid them down, right? Like it's more.
There wasn't necessarily like a flow to it, like in like that sense.
I mean, he's writing about. It's more like he's writing about his reality. It's his.
But
world.
his reality is hell. And that's the thing that I want to question though. He named his album Hell is Hot and
Dark and Hell is Hot.
Dark, yeah, there we go.
Right.
And I'm just like, but his hell would be his surroundings, his environment. So it's not really there's an actual concept in terms of like beginning to end, but every song itself is
just a DMX track, right?
That represents what he like.
But, like, what I'm trying to say is, if you want to look at it like Kendrick Lamar's Damn, that has a central concept behind it, right? He's trying to go with something. He's making a flow and an evolution of some sorts. Whereas DMX probably just was using this as therapy. Or, like,
fair.
take, like, the Big Pun album. I don't see a concept on the Big Pun album. That was just a lot of Big Pun flexing talent. But then you take something like the Raekwon album, the Only Built for Cuban Links, where it's kind of got this quasi concept. I don't know.
It's like an overall badassness to it. You know, like there's not necessarily. I want to revisit
that because like the research I did said it's a loose concept in which you can see this kind of evolution of things over time. But then there's just occasional songs where he like takes time off to go rap about whatever.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is that there's a lot behind the intention of what you're trying to do with the album and in terms of content. So like
okay, because we had a mix up one of the I think it was on Headspace, and we ended up listening to the Lox Chatterbox album as an independent rapper, and he had a concept to his album. Okay, and every song flowed in a sense with the skits, and it flowed in a way where you can see how like the evolution, right, of change. Okay. And I feel like that's concept, right? How to Sell Your Soul. He goes through like this guidebook. Every song is a different like stage.
But like
or whatever.
nobody's gonna have. I mean, like I would personally not mind it, but like nobody's gonna have like a very sad song and then a very happy song and then like a very like random song.
That
or
sounds
whatever.
like a DJ Khaled album to me, or like or at least French Montana's last album.
Yeah.
No, but like, okay, you gotta like just take it into consideration that, again, it comes down to is the artist trying to create a vibe with it, or like, I suppose
but
are they
even
trying
a vibe
to,
is a concept, wouldn't you think?
Are they just trying to sell singles, or are they just trying to actually?
A concept is a lot more about the songwriting and the lyrics and the intentions behind the story of the album,
right,
like the actual subject matter. And you're talking, like, the vibe of the album could be, like, entirely based off of, like, in the sake of a DJ Khaled thing, it's, like, song placement and choices. Like, really, those songs could have been about freaking anything. It was a lot more about the features and putting together these singles, and he put together this collection of songs.
Yeah.
Well,
but I don't think he really counts, because, honestly, he's DJ Khaled. He's not really trying to make banger albums.
But
like, if you think about it, like, I'm just thinking, like, I'm going way back to like my childhood and my like teenage years, but like Destiny's Child, they all had like thou shall not, like, you know, they all say like a like a sin kind of before like a lot of their songs, and then it ends like that. And then if you don't know that it ends like that, like if you hear Say My Name, it's gonna have that last little bit at the end or at the beginning. And then if you didn't know that it was why it's there, then it doesn't make sense. But if you listen to the album from like the beginning to the end, like it makes more sense, because at least there's that core theme that there's like
what would be the core theme, just out of curiosity?
That there's just that there's like things that are, sinful, and like thou shalt not do this and do that, and like they're just trying to like
But I was just trying to
like
again think of stuff that is like, okay, just to go in a different direction. Take something like My Chemical Romance's 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge. Like this album doesn't have any clear concept, and especially like I'd say more in rock, you're gonna find that it's a lot more collections of songs as opposed to concepts. However, on the subject of content, pretty much every song is emo-y in some way or another.
That's what I was gonna say.
But
But the concept
what
would be
makes
depressing.
That's a
or sad.
theme.
No, that's a
or
theme.
genre.
It's not a
Right.
concept, right? So like, look, it's like to be a concept, it has to have a plan to it. It has to have an attack. Good Kid, Mad City is the story of a kid who's trying to cope with being good in the Mad City, and there's a story behind it. That's a concept.
What would you
album.
say, Deltron?
Deltron 30,
Concept.
30.
Yeah, that's a concept
Absolutely.
album,
Concept.
100%.
And that
Amazing
follows
album.
a story and everything.
Right.
But then if you take something like My Chemical Romance, it's an excellent album to me, and I would love to even cover it at some point. And it's excellent because every song has its own unique feel, and even if they all kind of are like, my world's messed up, love is blah, blah, blah,
Right.
they manage to have different flows on every track, and managed to come up with a way to, on each song, approach a specifically different niche while really not varying that far away from the emo-y themes they were like predominant in at that point. And yeah, it is varied. There's different tracks, right? Just to anyone out there who wants to say whatever.
So then I want to ask you something about yesterday. That's the Headspace episode.
So yeah, we did Macklemore.
We did Macklemore, and just to be fair,
It's very hot
he
in here.
spoke about the same thing the entire album. Like, there was some songs that did vary, but 90% of the album, like maybe 80% of the album was like the same thing.
Yeah.
Hold on. And there was also different flows, different styles, different sounds, different type of things, but it was the same thing.
So
and
to
you
counter
just said
that,
with
like, he had 4 songs
That's
that
true.
are directly about the fact that he's a great rapper. At least 4 that were specifically, like, yeah, that's a significant chunk of his album that were, like, talking about the fact that he has accolades, his life, or let's say at least half to 75% of the album in some way went on about the fact that he's now rich, he's now famous, he's now doing his own thing, he's accomplished, he cares about his legacy. Like, that's the whole album. It's a bunch of him tooting his own horn.
Right.
So to counter that with, like, My Chemical Romance, you have, like, I'm Not Okay, which is a song that's just an anthem for messed up people who don't feel okay.
Yeah.
Then Helena, The Story of a Lost Love. Then, like, Cemetery Drive, a gothic tale about, like, wanting to, like, kill yourself with a
just
girl
sounds
over
like
there.
the rock version of MGK.
Yes, but, like, the variation of each song means that you're not really getting the same thing twice.
On which
while-
album? Which album?
3 Cheers for Sweet
Okay,
Revenge.
okay.
So you're not really getting, and many great albums that just aren't boring.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right. So then what about the MGK album? That was the similar My Life is Messed Up.
my problem with the
everything's-
MGK album is that I felt he was lazy and he wasn't trying. So his content
But
there.
take that aside.
But
Take
no,
that
no, no,
aside.
no. Actually, it's a great pivot point, right?
Okay.
So let's say if we wanted to say that in the analysis of content and its variation is one part of it, but then there's the qualitative substance. Part of what makes, let's say, MGK's Lace Up album ridiculously amazing
Is the
the
trickery
level
and
of effort.
Right.
The flows are crazy.
Yeah.
Like, every song is managed to feel unique and alive and whatever. When you listen to Black Flag, the energy's still there. When you listen to General Admission, he somehow manages to slow down while still being cool with it, while still having passion and energy there. And then when you got to Blossom or whatever
Blossom.
the last
Yeah.
album is, you just kind of get to this point where my perception was MGK didn't care enough to try that hard, and like it was honestly like a lackluster amount of. So he had some varied content, but like he was more interested in justifying the fact that he wants to get stoned for 2 days on
But
a
just
track
to
than it
defend
was.
him
Yeah.
in a minute, just to defend him a little bit. If you look at his please correct me if I'm wrong. Comment, let me know. But I didn't ever really go through the MGK catalog. But in terms of what I've heard, seen from him, and like experienced with whatever, he was always like heavy with what he had to say, and there was a lot of like raw anger, right?
Okay.
Even when he talked about like just Mind of a Stoner. I love the song.
Right.
But like the energy on it, his flow, his technique,
But everyone's
the
gonna
power.
have
Right,
like
but
that
that's
same
still-
sort of feeling. Like,
But
in
what
their
I'm saying
songs.
is that on this last album that I did not like it, it wasn't that the content on the songs wasn't varied. Yeah, MGK had a series of different songs, but it was when he was rapping and he wasn't with his rock band, he didn't have the same life and energy.
Right. But
and
if
so
you wanted
that
to
left
look at
him
the,
with
at
like
the title of Blossom, right? Changing, becoming anew. This would be like a new MGK. I'm just saying, like.
But what I'm trying to say is that what ended up happening from my perception of the situation was a dip in the quality of the content, even though he may have met another criteria of varied content. And it's worth saying that, like, look, a lot of dudes this year have dropped let's say, haven't necessarily been able to vary up the content. Like, look at a Lil Yachty album.
Yeah, but look at like, Foo Fighters or whatever, and I'm not like
Every
the
song
biggest
had a
fan,
unique
but everyone
feel.
had a similar similar feel.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm gonna like.
but hold on, but he wrote it all in like what, a week or something like that.
But,
So
like,
it's obviously like
I
stuff
would
that's relevant
say
to his
that,
life and to what's going
honestly,
on.
Yes.
That album, I ended up giving it like a 4.6 or something because every song was a unique experience and there was no real similar
And like
feelings between
Eric
the songs.
and Rakim, like they wrote it in
but
like 10 days
from a
or
content
something.
perspective, Dave Grohl did not write about the same subject twice.
Right, but
In
hold on,
his
hold on,
11
I just want to
songs.
justify something. You bring up that they did it in like a week.
Mm-hmm.
What is that relevant to them in terms of content?
Genuinely.
Well, it could just be like what's going on in his life, or like what's been going on
But
in his life.
you said
in
that he
more
wrote about
recently.
the same things over, but I'm saying he didn't do that.
No, I'm not saying that he did. I'm saying that like every song was different, but I think that it's interesting. It's like to see like what's
Okay.
going on in his life. It's like an open diary.
Yeah, and that album had a central theme of Dave Grohl realized the world is messed up. That is the central theme.
Right.
And it felt like there was a degree of a concept behind the songs because as it flowed through the songs, there was almost this emotional acceptance of what was happening through it. Was it a hard concept? No. But there was a certain feel that went through it. And he's an extremely talented person. But something that I thought of as we were discussing this on the content front is Dave Grohl also only had 11 songs on his album. And if we take Macklemore, he had 16 songs. And I find so often when you really get to like these really long albums, like was it Yachty who had like 23 songs or something like that?
The last 23 song album I did was Big Pun. But I think before that was
But Big
Yachty.
Pun had Big Pun had a lot of skits. I'm
but
saying
you know
like
what?
a
But
real
you know what?
23
Hold on.
songs.
If we're gonna talk about length, Yachty had 24. Uzi had I think like 16. But I think Yachty was like the longest one. No, Kodak Black was the longest one as well.
Well, we never actually did the review, but
Oh.
Kodak Black was long too. So one of the things I've noticed is a dude who gets away with 13. So let's say you have 13 tracks on your album.
Right.
Now it's a lot easier for you to actually vary your topics across
You can kind
songs.
of play with like the songs and like how they
And,
fit.
and if you look at like the Macklemore album, he could have cut out like 3 or 4 of those songs, right? Maybe released them as a bonus.
We agreed on this. Yeah.
Made it 12 tracks, made it a little shorter, and then it wouldn't have like had 4 songs about his accomplishments, maybe only 2, because he had a couple of sub themes.
And they're never really like my biggest like go-to songs, like for like, oh yeah, how great I am.
Oh, wait till
Like,
you
you
hear
wanna,
the
like, share
learn how to play the flute song. He had it's bad. He got inspired by Mask Off by Future and Trend Hop. Seriously,
The entire album was
it was
just a
just
big,
trend
like,
hopping. But
jumping
okay,
around.
that's so. I don't know.
But okay, hold on. To bring up trend hopping, actually, the more we go doing these new Future albums, I say Future, I meant modern albums that are coming out, all the newest releases, they're all starting to sound the same. And they're all starting to be kind of built the same way. I'm starting to realize that there's a lot more...
Okay, can you be more specific into who you mean by this? Because, like, Big Sean's album was hype as fuck, right? And it wasn't even in the same realm as other dudes.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not... I've noticed...
And they use, like, the same producers.
Right. No, I get it. But I'm saying that, like, I've noticed that And I guess it's because I'm trying to relate everything back to Dam, because so far Dam is like my main experience of like, I mean, if we go to Deltron, that's just a completely fictional
But like that's why like
thing.
Deltron's always
think-
gonna like
right.
be like the
It's-
concept
it's-
albums,
it's
and like
funny. It's
MC
for me,
Doom
Good Kid,
is gonna
Mad
be
City
like.
is my go-to concept album to
Fair.
find to, which is funny.
Just to make my point though, I feel that the way that the albums are being built in terms of song placement, it's like a set of 3 songs that, like we said, like these 3 songs, the first 3 are gonna be this. The second gap of 3 is gonna be about this, and then it kind of makes you by the
It's
by
like
the
an
third,
essay. It's like it's
yeah,
the
it's
intro.
like paragraph 1, this
It's
paragraph
funny.
2.
I kind of wish Sid was here because I'll notice that often it's like track 9 is supposed to sound like this, and track 3 is supposed to take you in this direction. And
Yeah.
there
Right, but
is-
I'm not getting that anymore. I don't feel like I get that anymore.
I do.
Certain songs.
I'm absolutely seeing it all over. Even on Macklemore's album, they were grouped in couplets and 2 or 3 little pairings of things to take you on. Like, look, you had like the 3 or 4 super I'm gonna copy Migos' sound songs in the middle. Then you had this
Right, but
I'm
that
gonna
gets
copy
tiring.
my
Wouldn't
old
you say?
sounds.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like they're
I
built
think
in
it
a way
really,
where
really
it's like-
depends on the album.
It's like if
Okay?
it's good, it's
So
like they should
take
all be
something-
together, or should they
Take
like?
something like Jesus of Suburbia, or American Idiot by Green Day.
Right.
Okay.
As the album goes on, it goes from heavier to like softer by the end of the
But
album.
it's transitioning. There's a difference. It's transitioning.
but,
When you
I
get to the end of the
there is-
album, you notice the heaviness to the softness. I'm talking about like Macklemore has these 4 songs.
Yeah,
My
but on
ego. These
other-
4 songs, my depression. These 4 songs, my like drug abuse and whatever.
That's basically the same thing on how like that album is.
But wouldn't
flowing.
you say that gets tiring?
No, not
Like
if
in
it's
terms
done
of
right.
like
Like,
listening
it
to
See, I
the
think
same
this
type
is
of-
where like it comes down to if it's done right, it's not tiring. See, Macklemore was just redundant and had nothing to say.
Like if you had
But
something more to say, like spread them out.
If you take the Foo Fighters album or many of these other ones where these guys actually have an idea, then it's actually how you come up with an album, right?
Yeah.
So if you're trying to like tell a story in some see, I know that there might be people who just don't care, and songs are about more the emotional mood of the music. But because that's part of it too.
Right,
What
right.
if the music makes more sense than the content, and what if you? I don't know. Like
Oh, quick question, because we got into this. No, we got into this, and I don't want to lose it. Yesterday on the Macklemore album again, there was a song that didn't fit the vocals. It didn't, like, the entire song just felt more heavier than what the song was supposed to feel like, and I feel like
that's like a real sidebar type thing to me. I mean. That would be like engineering and sounds. I mean, from a content perspective.
but
No.
that
I
also
meant
has
like the
something to
beat
do with
doesn't
it.
match the feel of the lyrics of the song. Like I feel like it's like heavy rock to soft romantic.
Yeah, but
Okay.
again,
You know what I mean?
Like, no, not exactly. I feel like it was a sound engineering thing that
Okay.
was really more.
But like
the
that
issue.
can have something big to do with it as well. Like it doesn't have to just be, that it's just that. Like it can be more than just the placement of the album. It can be the sound engineering. It can be like lots of things
which is true. But I mean, if we're talking about the idea of coupling 3 songs about subject A and then subject B together.
But then who says
Because here's the thing, I look at it like. It can backfire on you if it's done poorly. Like the problem I had with Macklemore is more that his first 2 songs and his last 2 songs on the album almost were about the same thing. There was no real growth or anything. There was
No.
no direction. Whereas, let's say he had like. Let's say you're trying to describe a series of emotions. In an ideal situation, you're really not having more than one song that's about exactly the same thing, and this
Right.
isn't the issue. So if you have 3 songs about self-esteem, and they're placed in an order, but they make sense, like this song is, oh, self-esteem exists in my life. Oh, I should care about self-esteem is the next one, and oh, fuck self-esteem is the third song. Okay, and then he moves on from that because it's whatever. But then song 11 is self-esteem is really important because it makes sense. So, but that could make sense. And this is where like it really depends a bit on the intention of
how
the
you
album,
build the album, how
right?
you take through
So
the story.
I
in a
don't.
sense.
I want to
Yeah.
like my whole takeaway on a lot of this is first of all, there's no hard rules. Like you can't apply this. Doesn't make sense to do it without
Right.
going one step further and going, what is the point of this album?
Like I wonder if anybody has ever just made an album. They had all these songs and they were just like, bloop, just like shut their eyes and put them in order, and that was gonna be that. And
French
like
Montana.
Has he actually done that?
No, I don't think he's actually done that.
Like,
But
I
I
just
feel like
wonder
some
if,
of
like,
his
anyone's-
albums are a little just
Well, I
like.
feel
Taking
like-
the chance to do something like that, put a whole bunch of
I
different
feel
songs
like-
together, and then just put them out there.
Like if you take something like Incubus's 8, I mean, the way they arranged the album was okay. It wasn't terrible. The songs had a certain flow. It felt all right. But like, man, the songs didn't really have a consistency to them.
Like Eminem is like always like so consistent. Like, you know, he's got like a flow, and he like.
But Eminem rarely makes a concept album.
Yeah.
And okay, Marshall Mathers LP's a concept, but often if you look at his songs, they're going to be like track to track, vibrantly different about random things.
Right, but then.
And there is a flow into how the album's arranged in a brilliant way. But like we've only like if you look at the flow of say the Marshall Mathers LP1, it's ridiculously greater than the Slim Shady LP, and we haven't even looked at Encore yet, so we can't really just talk about Eminem's album placement forever until we've gone through more of them.
No, for sure.
Fair. I feel like, look, there was a point yesterday as well, and I hate going back to the Macklemore album, but I found a lot of. Okay, look, Macklemore made a song where and I was saying this to I think Bonnie earlier, that he made a song with a lot of raw emotion in terms of like a really destroying relationship that's all over the place, up and down roller coaster. And then the next song, to me, the way that I felt it was like he's basically admitting that he loves this girl. That I'm assuming was the past one on the song, right? Just as the song follows up. But I didn't feel that there was as much like emotion, passion, and like authenticity in that song. It felt more fluff than the past one.
See, I wanna respond to like there's two sides to that.
Okay.
Right. One is you can't just assume because the two songs are next to each other they're about the same person.
No, but I mean,
like,
listening to
there's
that, what like
now, but to counter like that, on one track he said he's super faithful and keeps his dick in his pants. On like 3 or 4 other songs talks about cheating.
Yeah.
Or fucking random girls. Now, in a more granular sense, that to me is an inconsistency I have a problem with. But let's say the guy is more like a Lil... Who was it? Who did the Lil Uzi Vert did the whole album where he was heartbroken and messed up, and half the album he's obsessed with the girl, and the other half the album he's trying to meet new people and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, like, that's a little better, that kind of inconsistency, because it is more of an expression
broken up just like
of
he is.
that like
but
rage.
it's also like, but do you feel like
so that album
in that context I would also think it's real, like in terms of how you
let's
move
say
on.
when Lil Uzi Vert dropped all those songs that were all about the same thing, as much as it might not be like something I care about now, I gotta say that if I was like 18 and my heart was smashed, I'd probably love that album. And then you gotta consider that sometimes these albums are context appropriate. Like, maybe when you have an album and it's 15 tracks about selling drugs, you can't relate to it because you're not sitting in a car selling drugs.
If that's all that you do, then
and
do
then
it,
like there's
I
the
guess.
certain empathy factor with it. So my preference is always going to be kind of varied, intelligent like content, and that is going to be my preference because I find it really boring to hear rappers say the same things in every songs. But when I take like a guy like Future, it's pretty impressive the way he can vary up the same subject. And I mean, I'm not a big fan of it, and frankly could not get through. I did not necessarily enjoy going through his entire albums, but at the same time, he's more about presenting a raw energy on the track than he is about creating deep, meaningful content. In the same way that you're not necessarily going...
That would be his niche. Like, that's what he does.
Yeah, like, that's what it is. It's like,
like he's not...
Or take Fatboy Slim. Right about now, the funk soul brother. Check it. That's the whole lyrics to that song. It doesn't mean anything, really.
It just is fun. It's just good to listen to. It's easy and, like, whatever. It's just... Like, their music is just interesting. And so I think that it's not really a concept. It's just, like, a sound. Like, that you follow, like, kind of flows through.
Right. So, for me, when I'm listening to a guy like a Yachty, I'm keeping in mind that his intention is to make more of that sound thing. And when I'm listening to more guys who are talking about how they're lyrical rappers, then I'm going in on a certain degree of caring about it. But, like, take a guy like Big Pun. He cared about being the technically most proficient, elegant abilities, like packing the back in the back of the act type guy. And that's what you go to Big Pun for. And if he does that on every track, it's like all right, that's what I
But I
want
don't-
out of
again,
Big
But
Pun.
that's what you, that's exactly what you did.
I
is
like
you
that.
want
I
it.
like that. I like
But
that type of
really-
flow. But I wouldn't be able to sit there, repeatedly.
But I'm
after a while.
certain that, like, at another point in your life, maybe if you were younger, or maybe if you were just really into that, you could just, like, I
Yeah.
remember there was a period in time where if I had found Big Pun, I would have been obsessed. Like, it was around when I got into, like, Tech Nine and stuff.
Yeah.
And, like, all I looked for was fast rap, and I didn't really care about the content. I remember when I thought that the Tech Nine Eminem song was good until I realized it was really bad. But, like, not bad. I mean, it's technically freaking rapping fast, but they really are. They just spit a bunch of not. The only one who actually sounds good is Chris Calico.
Yeah.
But both Tech Nine and Eminem didn't try very hard.
They were too focused. I felt like they were too focused on trying to outshun each other that they didn't
I
really
think it's
put
probably
their,
what it is.
So-
efforts into the.
I think from like a content in the sense of an album, it's worth looking at what the artist is always trying to do when we like, especially if we're going to review them, right? Maybe not as a hard metric, but if you know that the person don't care about being lyrical, judging them for not being lyrical is almost just silly at that point. And then if you, like, I'm not saying, like, you guys have to do this. It's just kind of, and this is really also for y'all out there watching this, because it's really, how do you approach a subject like this? How do you approach people, what content they should do? How diverse or varied or simple?
Well, I mean,
It's like how sometimes like the song placement isn't great, or it's like, oh, we thought that this song should have been, like the closing song should have been at the beginning, or like there are songs like that
there's a lot of.
that often you feel this way a little bit more.
Well, there's a lot of discussions to actually be had, because I also
absolutely.
think that, like, it goes beyond that. Like, we've had shows where, like, Holden's sitting there and he's like, this is an amazing album, and I just don't like it because that day, and unfortunately it might hurt my rating and it's not professional and I apologize, but
It's okay.
that day I'm just not feeling that type of music, and because I'm not
but that totally impacts it. Like, honestly, like, the Macklemore album was just so fluffy, and I was not feeling fluffy.
Right.
Like, I was just not down for it. I had just done The Killers earlier in the day. That was too much. My fluff threshold was just hitting the max between those two. Killers was definitely the better act between the two. But still, like, I think it's just interesting. I mean, I think we could probably end up with like 30 subtopics off it as one main topic.
That's
all
true.
Of that. But I think it's always important to just try to understand what the artist is trying to do. Are they accomplishing their goal? Like, what if the artist, like the Triple X Station guy, it's really fascinating. I saw this video where the way he writes songs, he doesn't care about finishing them. He just writes a verse, chorus, whatever. That's it. Doesn't really mix or master
That's his
it.
interpretation of like
And
that
then
art.
puts it out. So, like, at first glance, it's kind of like, yo, this doesn't sound right. Okay, sure, but maybe it's like the punkest thing rap scene in a long time, and it's kind of like what Lil B did.
But it's kind of like it's like you're saying that he's doing all this stuff and he's doing it differently than the way so many other people are doing it. That doesn't make it right or wrong. It just makes it different,
But, like,
and it just makes it it's controversial because he's
But
got
then who
these
gets
like
to decide? Like, who gets
Well,
to
I
decide?
think
the
that-
critics, I guess.
I think that it's a matter of he's doing it on purpose versus if he's doing it accidentally.
He's doing it with purpose.
But then do you ask
Exactly.
yourself, is this hip hop, or is this like?
I would say that's completely a hip hop move. Now, where I go in and question is it hip hop is more something like a DJ Khaled, who is just taking a bunch of names and throwing them together with no
Fair.
heart and no soul. His son listened to the songs, and if he cried in a certain way, what is this nonsense?
No.
That's almost mocking the culture with what he's doing. Fine, he makes his chatter, he does his thing, etc. But honestly, that album was the trash. It was worse than Macklemore's album. Why?
Debatable.
I mean, sure, it had bangers and it had that one guy who got featured like 8 times, but really, it's a collection of nonsense. And I have to admit, Macklemore almost tried to do what DJ Khaled did and had so many features it ruined the sound of Macklemore.
Yeah.
What is it? A feature per song, and then that one?
Yeah, there was one that did in 16 songs. Macklemore had 16 features on the album and only one song without features.
And this is the first time without Ryan Lewis, right?
No, first time since I think he's been with Ryan Lewis without Ryan Lewis. Anyway.
There you go. He's obviously can't do it on his own.
But, like, I mean, it just goes to show that a guy like Ryan Lewis might have that vision on how to create and craft a proper album that is varied, that has it, and that there is some value.
That sound, that, like, proper organization
And
of how you want it to flow.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what else to say right now.
So then I guess this will be passed off to the viewers. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
What do you think about album placement, song content? Do you think that...
Do you have good examples that you can like tell us about?
Do you have bad examples?
Yeah, or bad ones.
Yeah.
Honestly, we want to just kind of keep going with this as an ongoing thing because these are like something to do that's not reviewing albums but still related to it, and just kind of having the conversation flowing. So let us know what you think of this. Please like the video. We appreciate you watching it. We really, really do. We love your comments, especially the long ones where you educate us and you scold us and all that stuff. And we're going to definitely come back with the Classic Quest as soon as possible for those of you who miss it and think it's definitely not gone. I know The Rock is scary. Feel free to check that out. On that note, I don't have much more to say. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Besides that, check us all up on our platforms, and we're out.
Thanks, guys.